Welcome to the Alison Howard podcast, where high-achieving women elevate their identity, expand what's possible, and create a life of true abundance. I'm Alison Howard. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the podcast, or if you're watching me on YouTube, welcome there. I'm so glad that you're here today because I genuinely believe that this episode has the potential to reconnect you with something many women have unintentionally lost along the way. If you've ever found yourself wondering, what happened to the woman who used to dream? Or how did I end up building a life that feels so responsible but not necessarily fulfilling? Then I think today's lesson is going to speak directly to your heart. One of the things that I have observed over the years, both in my own life and through coaching so many incredible women, is that somewhere between childhood and adulthood, many of us slowly stop asking ourselves what we truly desire. We become so busy taking care of everyone else, paying the bills, building the careers, raising the kids, serving at church, and doing all the things that we eventually lose touch with the very woman that God created us to be. We stop dreaming because dreaming begins to feel a little irresponsible. We stop imagining because practicality becomes our default. We stop believing because disappointment has convinced us it's safer not to want too much. But I don't believe that's how we're meant to live. I believe God intentionally placed unique gifts and desires and talents and dreams inside every one of us. I don't think those dreams are random. I think they're clues. I think they're invitations. I think they're part of the life He's inviting us to steward well. So today we're going to be talking about two things that have to work together if you're ever going to build the life that you long for. First, we're going to uncover how to rediscover your dream if you've lost touch with it. And then we're going to talk about something that I think is just as important, how to develop the courage to actually pursue it. Because knowing what you want is one thing, but becoming the woman who's willing to go after it is something entirely different. So grab your journal, get comfortable, let's dive in. The first thing I want to talk to you about is why most women don't even know what their dreams are anymore. I want to explain why this is so hard for so many of you, because if you understand the why, then the how gets a lot easier. Somewhere between childhood and adulthood, you were trained out of dreaming. And this isn't something that happened on purpose. Nobody sat you down and said, okay, stop having big ideas. This is something that happened slowly. A teacher told you to be realistic, maybe. A parent worried about money and you absorbed that worry as your own. Maybe someone laughed at an idea that you shared just once and you never brought it up again. And here's the thing about dreams, they're sensitive. They don't argue with you when you dismiss them. They just go quiet. They retreat. And the longer they stay quiet, the more disconnected you get from your own desire until one day you're 35 or 45 or 55 years old and someone asks, what do you really want? And you genuinely don't know. Not because you don't have a dream, but because you stopped listening for it. So if you're sitting here right now and thinking, I don't even know what my dream is, I want you to hear me. That's not a character flaw. That's just what happens when a desire goes unspoken for long enough. It doesn't mean it's gone. It means that it's buried, and buried things can be dug back up. So here's a phrase I want you to remember. Your dream didn't disappear. It just went underground. Okay. So the good news is underground things leave traces. There are clues your dreams have been leaving you the whole time, even when you weren't paying attention. And I'm going to help you find them today. So how do you do that? This is the practical part of what I want to share with you today. I'm going to give you 4 ways to excavate what's been buried. Write these down because I want you to actually use them this week, not just hear them and then move on. Okay. So there are clues. And the first clue is, what did you love before you knew it wasn't practical? Go back. Back before anyone told you what was realistic. What did you gravitate toward? What did you do for hours as a kid without anyone making you? That thing you loved before the world told you to be sensible, that's not just like childhood, childish nostalgia, right? That's data. Children haven't learned to filter their desires through fear yet. So what they love is often closer to the truth than what adults claim to want. Okay, second clue, what do you envy? Now, this one stings a little bit, but it works. This is actually one of my favorite ways to know what your dreams are. I want you to pay attention to envy, real envy. the kind that makes your stomach tighten when you see someone else doing something. Now, this isn't jealousy over their looks or their relationships or their stuff. I mean, when you see someone living a specific kind of life, doing a specific kind of work, and something in you says, I want that. Envy is a dream radar. It points directly at what you want, but haven't given yourself permission to want out loud. The third clue, what would you do if you knew that you couldn't fail? And I know, you've heard this one before, but most people answer it way too quickly and way too safely. I want you to actually sit with this for a full 60 seconds before you answer. What would you do if failure simply wasn't on the table? Not what should you do, but what would you actually do? And let that answer surprise you a little bit. And then the fourth thing, what keeps circling back? Some desires show up once and fade. Real dreams aren't like that. Real dreams are persistent. They circle back. You let it go, you get busy with life, and then 6 months later, there it is again, tapping on the door of your mind. If something keeps returning to you, a business idea, a creative pursuit, a calling, after you've tried to dismiss it multiple times, that's not your imagination being noisy. That's a signal that won't let you off the hook because it's not finished with you yet. Here's what I want you to understand about all four of these clues. They're not random feelings just floating around. I believe they're breadcrumbs. I believe God has placed specific gifts and instincts inside of you on purpose. And your dream is usually just those gifts pointing you toward what you're meant to build, create, or become. You didn't invent your desire to write or to lead or to build something or to help people in a specific way. That capacity was placed in you. The dream is just you noticing it. So, why knowing isn't enough? You need more than just knowledge. You actually have to take steps forward, and that requires bravery. And so, I want to talk to you about that now. All right. Let's say that you do the work. Let's say that you actually find the dream. You finally name it out loud. And maybe this is for the first time in years. Maybe it's for the first time in your life. Now, what? What do? This is where most people get stuck. And it's important that you understand why, because the stuck point isn't what you think it is. Most people assume the obstacle is logistics. So, money, time, having the right connections, the right strategy. And yeah, sure, those things do matter eventually, but they're not what's actually stopping you right now in this moment. What's stopping you right now is fear. And fear is sneaky because it rarely shows up announcing itself. It shows up disguised as practicality. Fear almost always is disguised as practicality. So it sounds something like this. I'll start when I have more in savings. I'll pursue it once the kids are older. I need to learn more first. I have to be at expert level. Sometimes those things are true, but often they're just fear in a respectable disguise, buying you more time to avoid the leap. So let's talk about where bravery actually comes from, because I don't think bravery is a personality trait that some people have and others don't. I think it's something you access on purpose through specific shifts in how you think. So bravery comes from identity, not feeling. And here's something that most people get backwards. They think that they need to feel brave before they act brave. And that's not how it works. Courage isn't a feeling that arrives and gives you permission to move. Courage is a decision that you make first. And then the feeling catches up later, usually after you've already taken the action. So think about the bravest woman you know. She wasn't fearless. She was scared and she moved anyways because she had already made a decision about who she was going to be, regardless of how her nervous system was voting in that moment. So, bravery comes from lowering the stakes on the outcome. A lot of your fear isn't really about the dream, it's about what it would mean about you if you tried and it didn't work out. So, here's a little bit of a reframe around that. Okay. What if the goal isn't the guaranteed outcome? What if the goal is just becoming someone who's willing to try? If you shift your measure of success from did it work to did I show up as the version of myself who goes after things, you take so much pressure off of the outcome that moving forward stops feeling so terrifying. Bravery comes from remembering you're not doing this alone. This is the piece that I hold on to personally, and I want to offer it to you. I don't believe that you're meant to white knuckle your way into your dream through sheer willpower. I think you're a co creator in this. You bring the obedience and the action, and you trust something bigger than you with the outcome. There's a verse that has carried me through more leaps than I can count in the past 20 years of being an entrepreneur. And it's, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Not because I gritted my way there alone, but because I wasn't doing it alone in the first place. We are co creators with God. It's up to us to lean on the obedience and the action. We can control that. We can do that. And then we have to believe in something bigger than us with the outcome. The reality of that changes the entire emotional weight of even taking the risk. You're not betting everything on your own limited strength. You're stepping out and trusting that you're held while you do it. So, how do you do this? What is the actual practice? How do you move from knowing into doing? I don't want to leave you with just inspiration to dream. I want to leave you with motion. We have to get into motion. So, here's what I want you to actually do. The first step, step one, name it out loud today. Not someday, today. Do this today. Tell one person your dream, one safe person in your life. Tell them your dream, your real one, your real dream, not the safe dream, not the edited version you usually say when people ask you what you're working on. Saying it out loud to another human makes it real in a way that just thinking it never does. It moves the dream from your head into the world. And once it's in the world, it's so much harder to quietly let it die. Step two, take one action this week that your old self wouldn't take. Small is fine. Small is actually really good. Small action matters sometimes more than big action because it's repeatable. So send the email, sign up for the class, tell your spouse what you actually want to build, make the appointment. The size of the action matters less than the fact that it is evidence. It's proof to your own brain that you're someone who moves, not just someone who dreams. Okay, step three, expect resistance and don't mistake it for a stop sign. Resistance is part of this process. The moment you start moving toward a real dream, resistance is going to show up. Your internal doubts are just going to get a little bit louder. Logistics seem, more complicated than they did in your head, and all of that is normal. It doesn't mean that you're on the wrong path. It actually usually means that you're on the right one. So treat resistance as a sign that you're close to something, not a sign to retreat. Okay, so as we wrap up today, I want to remind you of something that I hope stays with you long after this episode is over. Your dream is not asking you to become someone else. It is inviting you to become more fully yourself. The woman that God created before fear became louder than faith is what it's asking you to step into. You have a divine assignment. Before you had disappointment that, convinced you to settle, before practicality replaced possibility, my prayer for you is that you don't leave today's episode just feeling inspired to dream. Inspiration's wonderful. I love it. But inspiration without action fades very quickly. Instead, I hope that you leave with one decision already made, that you're going to name your dream, that you're going to honor it, and that you're going to take one small step toward it this week. Because remember, courage is rarely something you feel before you move. You have to move. More often than not, courage is discovered because you moved. If today's conversation resonated with you, I don't want this to be where your growth stops. I would love to invite you to my private community, the Inner Shift Society. And in my community, this is where women just like you gather to do this work together. We dive deeply into identity, which literally is the game changer. If you're wanting to elevate in life and business, you have to get into this work. We talk about mindset, faith, subconscious rewiring, embodiment, purpose, abundance, business, and creating a life that feels aligned with the woman that God created you to be, because you want lasting transformation, and lasting transformation doesn't happen from just one podcast episode. So it happens through repetition. It happens through community and support. It happens by surrounding yourself with women who remind you of who you're becoming when the old version of you starts to get loud again. So if you're ready for that kind of support, I'd absolutely love to have you inside of the community. You can join using the link in the show notes. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. It's always an honor to speak into your life, and I never take that responsibility lightly. So until next time, all right? And as I say every week, go and be the woman that your future is waiting on. Be blessed.